Welcome to the Real Estate Explainer podcast, where we talk about anything and everything real estate. I'm your host, Brian Kiczula. Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Explainer podcast. Today we have Brent Bowers on the episode, and we're going to jump into land deals. Hey, just wanted to say thanks for jumping on the podcast today.
Brian, thanks for having me. I'm a huge fan of cost segregations. I'd love to talk about those as well, because those save me a fortune on taxes. I love buying properties with buildings on it with my land money. My name's Brent Bowers. I got into land investing in 2016 because I was trying to get out of the military. I wanted lifestyle freedom, passive income, time freedom. Really, I just wanted freedom. That was the main thing. So I already had rental properties. I had 8 doors, and they were what I called forced savings accounts, because I had to put money into them almost every single month, I felt, to keep them going, keep them rented, and or evictions.
Yeah. You know, the expenses with owning rental properties is real. And I think a lot of people don't always set aside enough money for those unexpected hot water repairs, or the hot water tank that blows, or maybe the HVAC system or appliances, whatever it is. So land definitely has its differences there.
So we're here to talk about land, but I have quite a few rental houses that I'm selling them all. I'm trading up. I'm doing 1031 tax exchanges, trading up into light industrial or mobile home parks, which is the ultimate land deal, because you could get paid by every 5,000 square foot of your land. But yeah, rentals, they're very long-term, how do I say it? Savings accounts. I'll leave it polite because I don't want to offend anybody in your audience.
No, and I work with clients across the country that are scaling up from single family homes into apartment complexes. And sometimes they move into hotels and industrial buildings and everything in between. Getting started coming out of the military and looking at land deals, in my eyes, it's not something you're like, hey, I'm going to go invest money in land and make money. And the reason why is because land doesn't generate a monthly income, or you wouldn't think that land generates a monthly income. That's exactly it, because really what a lot of people get saddled with is if they buy that piece of land in Northport or wherever else, United States, is not only do they not get any income, they also don't get any depreciation, and they have to pay property taxes every single year. So when you were looking at land as an investment opportunity, could you tell us how it worked out?
Yes, you're right. That's why I never invested in land. I thought I had to be rich, especially in your neck of the woods, even in my neck of the woods in Florida. I can't buy land and just sit on it and wait. Oh yeah, every year I got to pay the taxes as well. So I heard a podcast just like this. It was where a guy was like talking about doubling his money overnight. And I was like, wait a minute. I have never heard anybody else talk about this. I'm from Okeechobee, Florida. I know about cows, that we have more cows in Okeechobee than people. And when you follow the herd, you eventually go off the cliff or get slaughtered. So I didn't want to follow the herd. Everyone was jumping in the house investing. I wanted to do something no one else was talking about. And this guy's talking about buying land at tax auctions and then turn around and selling it overnight. I couldn't go to tax auctions. I was in the military. I was preparing for my 3rd combat deployment. I was in the field training. But what I did do was I sent letters, postcards to landowners that were about to lose their land at the tax auction. So I was trying to catch them ahead of time. And I started getting calls like crazy from this postcard of people like, yeah, give me $300 or give me $500. And this was like inefficient, not buildable, landlocked, just garbage land in most people's eyes. But one man's trash is another man's treasure. So I started going out and looking at this stuff, and I'd call realtors. I would take photos. I'd put it on Craigslist and Facebook, and I'm selling this stuff. I'm buying it for like a couple $100, selling it for $5,000. And then I start selling it on seller financing, which was a paradigm shift for me. Like Stephen Covey talks about, was giving me monthly passive income. And I only had to make $5,000 a month back then to cover my expenses. I was at $12K a month within 18 months of doing my first land deal. And then the land deals got bigger and better.
So sellers are about to lose their property. So they haven't paid their property taxes on it. You're finding them. They're contacting you to say, hey, I do need to sell my property. And then are you structuring a note with them saying, hey, why don't I do an installment sale? So I'm paying you a couple of $100 a month, or are you just paying the full $500, $10,000, $100,000 up front?
I always try and get them to do an installment sale so they can reduce their taxes and spread it out, as well as become the bank. And I'm like, hey, you know why the banks are the biggest, prettiest buildings in every city and every state? Is because they collect interest. Would you be interested in being the bank? And most of the time people are like, no. but sometimes they are. And I've gotten so many deals where they let me pay monthly payments that are principal payments. They're larger, but it all comes off the balance. So yes, I always talk to the seller about being the bank, about making a little bit more for their land. But yeah, a lot of times they just want the quick cash payoff.
Then you're talking about generating income, monthly recurring revenue from them. I think you said you scaled to 5,000 to cover your $5,000 bills and then up to 12,000 plus. How are you generating income? Is it the same way? You're reselling that land to somebody else and passing the payment right through?
That's right. I resell as soon as possible. A lot of times with these purchase agreements that people sign, and I've changed up the strategy a little bit. We now mail people that have land that's in demand or land selling rather than getting the inefficient garbage land, because it takes just as much time to make $50,000 or $100,000 as it does to make $5,000. So yes, I'll pre-market that land. My purchase agreement allows me to do that in most states. Some states, they frown upon it, so I'll stay away from it. But it allows me to pre-market it to where most of the time I already have a buyer lined up with an earnest money deposit at a title insurance company to where I'm profitable immediately on these deals, where I get a down payment immediately and a monthly payment. And I'll either have my own cash into the deal or I'll have my next door neighbor's money. A lot of times I get private loans on some of these parcels of land that I buy from like my mother-in-law, my neighbor, my CPA, and we're securing their funds with the land. And we're writing them a promissory note in a deed of trust or a promissory note in a mortgage, depending on what state it's in. They're in the first lien position. And we're paying them anywhere from 8 to 12% interest on their money. And most of the time I'm buying this land for less than 60 cents on the dollar. So if the market crashes the day we do the deal, I can at least sell it for what the lenders got into it, pay the lender back.
Okay, that's interesting because that's a way to all of a sudden make a monthly recurring revenue off land, whereas it's just something that I didn't really know existed. Just because, again, it was one of those things that why would you buy land? You have to pay the property taxes. You're not getting any rents. Yeah, it was just an expense, and you're hoping that the market goes up or you flip it or maybe you build on it in a couple of years. But that's not the case in this scenario because you're reselling to somebody who's paying you a monthly installment note on it. So very cool method to structure the deal.
Yeah. And not all of them work out that way. Sometimes the builders, the developers, they'll just pay us cash. And it happens. I'll do 30-year mortgages on some of this land. And the longest time I've ever had anybody pay me was almost 7 years. And if you look at an amortization schedule on a 30-year mortgage, the first 7 years is pretty much all interest.
And what happens when somebody bails on you? They just stop paying. What's the process of getting the property back?
Yeah, it does happen. We've had people die. We've had people get sick. We've had people change their plans. We've had people get divorced. So if the buyer doesn't put at least 6,000 or more down, we'll do what's called a land contract or contract for deed. So I never transfer the deed until they're paid off. The land doesn't leave my LLC. But if I go through a traditional title insurance company where a realtor sells the land for me, I'm generally getting way more than $6,000 down. So no one's ever walked from that land, but I have had a lot of people decide not to purchase land. And I've done over 357 parcels at this time. I've had a lot of people walk away from it too, where we took back, I think, 6 parcels of land in the past 3 months. So I have to resell that land.
Yeah. Now, when you're looking at $6,000, that's a long way from the $500 lots that you picked up in Colorado several years ago. What are you recommending if someone's looking to get into land deals? I guess the challenge is the markets are so different across the country because you could say $20,000 or $40,000, but it'd be completely different somewhere else. What would that $6,000 break down as a percentage of the overall cost of the land?
Yeah, and I buy land. A lot of times I'm buying lately anywhere from about $150,000 to $300,000 parcels of what I'm paying. It's just I'm really comfortable in, and there's hardly any competition. But you're right. Every area of the United States is different. I think the cost is irrelevant. I think it's more on the demand and the supply, because at the end of the day, you can go buy land in the middle of nowhere for like next to nothing and you have a hard time selling it. You will sell it. There is no piece of land that won't sell. I've never had a piece of land that I couldn't sell. It's just marketing. How much do I want to market this thing? So I'd prefer to market very little and have it fly off the shelf. But here's what I would focus on, because if someone's looking to get into real estate, I think land is the easiest, fastest, most affordable way to get started. I have people ask me all the time, I've got $6,000. What do I do with it? 3,000 away in your savings account, maybe get some interest on it, and take the other 3,000 and divide that up over the next 6 months. And how much money can you spend for the next 6 months? $3,000. Divide that by 6 months and break that up to sending what we call land offer letters, or LOLs, which are purchase agreements. If anybody wants a copy of that purchase agreement, just go to thelandsharks.com/LOL. The reason why I call LOL, we call them land offer letters, or we laugh out loud every time we get a land deal back in our inbox. So if you send out $3,000 worth of these land offer letters, you're probably going to have a deal that makes you a minimum of 10K net. So I say save that money. Don't buy a piece of land with it. Get a piece of land under contract. And once you get it under contract, do your due diligence, talk to land sales specialist real estate agents, see what the blowout price would be for that land, and then figure out who's buying that land for cash in that immediate area. Just assign your contract, sell your contract to a cash buyer and make a quick $10,000 or $15,000 and build up your nest egg to where you have a decent sized savings account, pay off some debt, and then maybe start focusing on buying some land. I wish I would have done it like that. I went back and forth. I was just buying it like crazy and I made a bunch of mistakes. So many mistakes.
So interesting. Instead of taking that money and buying a piece of land, it's getting a deal. So you're just trying to get the conversations going so you can actually sell it. You're just generating deals is what you're doing at that point. As soon as you have enough reserves, then buy your own land. That's interesting. Now, with that said, how do you find the market that you would want to advertise? It's going to be a tricky thing because it's not always going to be in your backyard. How do you find those spots in Georgia? How do you find those spots in North Carolina that you want to farm for land deals? I'd like to thank today's sponsor, CostSeg RX, a cost segregation company. If you're interested in a cost segregation study, log on to realestateexplainer.com and click the cost segregation link at the top of the page.
Yeah, great. I love that you mentioned those two states. Those are states that I do deals in. So you can start with Google. You can Google North American Migration Map. It's a pretty cool website. It's owned by North American Van Lines, and it shows you the incoming states where people are moving into and the outgoing states. What it doesn't track, though, is people coming from outside the United States into the United States. It's really just tracking where the moving vans are going. But there's the top states are the Carolinas and Georgia, Florida, Idaho. Once you see those, you can go to like Redfin, look at what land has been selling in the past 3 months in one of those states. You can even micro down to a community and just what I call is heat maps. You're looking at the dots where land's been selling in the last 3 to 6 months. I even like seeing a couple parcels of land selling in the last year. Those are kind of like secondary, tertiary markets. But once you figure that out, you can micro down to an area and be like, okay, I'm going to go for this playground. This is going to be it. I'm going to price this area out. I'm going to figure out what it's selling for by the acre or by the square foot. I'm going to build these land offer letters to offer Brian $3,700 an acre, but I see that it's selling for $6,700 an acre. So you're building in your profit. If they sign that offer letter, now you have an agreement. You could purchase that land. You have an asset under contract, a beautiful piece of land under contract. And then you can either buy it, turn around and sell it to someone else for cash, or create your own note. Like all these people like want to buy notes. I have people all the time wanting to buy notes from me. I say, I'm not selling my note. Why don't you go out, create notes? I like creating notes rather than trying to go out and buy and sell someone else's note, which I got into that when I was a teenager. I never did a single one, but that's really it. We're just taking one person's trash and turning it into treasure. Like I got my 7-year-old daughter. We were on a bike ride a couple of weeks ago. We were walking around our neighborhood and she sees a pink Power Wheel and this thing's sweet, but it's in the trash pile. And I was like, Sweet Pea, you don't want that thing. It's broken. It doesn't work. She's like, please, Daddy, please. She asked me almost 25 times. And the 26th time I said, okay, let's go get the truck and we'll go get it. And of course, there's no battery in it. And my buddy, I'm fishing with him the next weekend. We're on my boat and he's got this battery. We drop a light in the water and it's running off this battery. And I was like, you know what? I need one of those things for my daughter's Power that we found in the garbage the other day. And he's like, take that one. So I brought it home that night, put it on the charger, and this battery will run this Power Wheel for 3 hours. So one person's trash turned into my daughter's treasure. So that's what we're doing with land.
That's really cool. It's finding the needles in the haystack. And one of the things, how do you do this? Because I can't imagine you're on the phone all day talking to clients that are looking to sell. What's a great way to build a business that you can have running, but it's not consuming your full time and it's not also draining your bank account just because you're spending advertising dollars?
Yeah, absolutely. It's huge. Setting up a budget because people are like, how many should I mail per week? it doesn't matter what I say. You got to test the market. You got to get the right message to the right person at the right time. And it's all about just consistency. So I try and mail 50 or 55 a day offers. It's all about making offers. And I hate being on the phone. I really do hate being on the phone. So we test it out from time to time. Sometimes I just take the phone number off. I do have someone help me with the acquisition side. He checks the email. So they come back a lot of times in our email or fax machine or our United States Postal Service. They'll mail it back to us. So I try and stay off the phone as much as possible. I encourage them to mail it back to us or email it back to us so we can view the deal, go over the due diligence. If you're like, what kind of due diligence should I do? I got a free giveaway. Go to thelandsharks.com/DD as in due diligence. Those are all the things we check. And really there's 14 items on there. All 14 of those things have caught me up at one time or another and cost me money. So hopefully it helps someone else. That's how I set it up, because I built this business originally to get myself my time back. And that's the most important thing. Like you said, I say deletion, automation, then delegate. So delete what we can, then automate what we can, then delegate everything else.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not there in my world. I'll tell you, I seem to be in this perpetual cycle of creating more work for myself. And it's figuring out a way. And what I do, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who does this, but then I've got a brand new golden idea that pops up, and it's that shiny object syndrome. Then I'm doing the research on it. I'm creating SOP, and then I'm sending it to my team members so they can do it in the future. But I think having that game plan in place before you get started is the key. So you're sending out 50 offers a day. You're making offers on these assets. And the cool thing here is it's not someone who's calling you back to have a discussion about it. If you give them direction to mail it back to you, then you've eliminated a step. You have someone who's actively engaged in selling their property now. So it's an interesting way to get these deals moving forward. Why do you think you've been so successful in this space specifically?
Yeah, I think it's because my back was against the wall. My second deployment, my first wife left me. I saw my second wife probably getting ready to do the same thing. This time there was kids involved, and she's like, I didn't sign up for this. And she's raising 2 kids by herself, and I'm always gone. And so I had a huge why. I didn't want that to happen again, let alone there be kids involved. I was preparing for a 3rd combat deployment. I was just back-to-back deployments and trainings, and I was always gone, always away. So I had to make it work. So I had no choice. I also got my butt up every morning at 4 a.m., got the day started, and didn't take a lunch break. I would be sending offers to landowners, which hustle is a season. The grind is a season. I don't want to portray to anybody that's the only way. I probably could have worked a little smarter, but I didn't have any money and I hardly had any time for a little while. But I think that once you get it going, you don't have to grind as long. So why was I successful? I took a lot of action. I listened to my coaches. I eventually hired a coach after I made some money. I heard that guy on the podcast and I was like, this is not rocket science. I'm going to take action today. And I made a little money. And then I ended up hiring that guy. I ended up paying him $40,000.
That's a big commitment to a coach, $40,000. What would you say your next goal is? What's your next big step?
I'm really having fun putting mobile homes on some of this land, brand new double wide mobile homes. I'm really having a blast doing that, providing affordable housing. And I've got a partner that's helping me. He's my implementer, my operator, because I'm the visionary. I see it. And then I need someone to help me with the detail-oriented, step-by-step, daily minutia stuff. But that's the goal. And then what we're doing to reduce our taxes, because I get beat up pretty bad on the amount of taxes I pay on this income from this land, because you can't depreciate it like you said there. I have a very good CPA that I consult with monthly, and I'll buy either a light industrial building, which is real simple. It's like they have roll-up doors and it's a metal building. Not much can go wrong. And then you have triple net, and then we'll cost segregate it, because I was like, man, I'm having to work so hard. I got to do a deal just to pay the IRS now. And then my tax bill increases. Oh, I can sell some. And then I got a couple of huge tax bills back to back. And I was like, oh, I could sell some real estate to do it. But that just kept digging me further and further into the hole. So I was like, I'm not going to sell anything anymore. I'm going to take more of my big land deals and 1031 them. My problem is, how do I make money? Now it's like, how do I keep some of this money?
There you go. I think, you hit on the mobile home park idea, and mobile homes are so cool if you can build out a community. and they offer a ton of accelerated depreciation and cost segregation. Another cool thing that I'd encourage you to look at is RV parks, because now you don't have tenants that are staying for years on end, but treat it more like you're renting a space for a few days or a few weeks. It's more seasonal, but you can pick up RV parks in some cool spots around the country, and they just make a really neat investment opportunity, especially since you already have such an insight on the land valuation, mobile homes. So it's such a cool idea. I love the transition from a land investor into the light industrial as well, mobile homes and RV parks.
You got my wheels turning, man. I'm telling you what, I have an RV. I love land.
I've got $1 million idea, maybe more than that, and I'll throw it out there because I'd love to see it. So picture this. Yeah, an old golf course that's defunct in Florida, somewhere probably off the 75 or the 95. And instead of developing it out, just build swimming pools with pool cages around them where you could pull your RV right up into it, and you already have a fire pit and everything else. You're literally more or less Airbnb a swimming pool, and you could put it around a little old golf course lake. And I just think it'd be so cool. And I just say, who would want to do that? Because then you could go with your buddies on the weekends. They're not staying with you. They're staying in their own mobile homes. They all have their own pools. You'd hang out at each other's places. Such a neat idea.
You need a pool. That was my wife's #1 requirement. If we moved back to Florida, if we moved from Colorado to Florida, we had a maid in Colorado, 58-acre ranch. I still have it. We rented it out, but she's like, we need a pool. We absolutely must have a pool.
So before we wrap up, how can listeners get in touch with you to learn more about what you do?
Yeah, super simple. Go to thelandsharks.com and hit that schedule a call button. I will be the one making that call back. Most of the time it's within 24 hours. Really easy to get in touch with. I have a YouTube channel and an Instagram and TikTok. I talk about this stuff all the time on those channels. Brent L as in land, Brent L Bowers.
Awesome. Thanks for being on the episode today.
Thank you so much.
If you'd like to get connected with today's guest, log on to realestateexplainer.com and click the Get Connected button on the homepage.